Hi, I'm Lizzie Harper, and today I'm going to be doing the fifth and final series of testing synthetic paintbrushes. Now, this is because there are some ethical issues with using Sable brushes. I normally use a trusty Winsor & Newton Series 7, which is pure Kolinsky Sable, but there are also ethical issues with using synthetics. They're one-use plastics. You can't win. Anyway, so the brushes that I'm going to be testing today are the Escoda Prado, which is here, the Escoda Perla, here, the Princeton Velvet Touch, and the Raphael Precision, which is from a travelling set. Now, all of these have been suggestions from you guys who've been following this particular quest on YouTube and making lots and lots of suggestions. There's associated blogs where I'm going to be doing the entire summary of everything I've tested so far and what my final conclusions are. So yeah, we're going to be testing these four today, and hopefully we'll come up with some good results. So these are all the brushes that I've tested thus far in my search for a synthetic alternative. I'm not going to list them all right now because it'd be very boring, but they will all be listed in the blurb under this YouTube video. None of these ones worked for me. These are my favourites thus far from the tests I've done. So we have a Princeton Neptune, which I really like. That's my favourite of all. We had a Rosemary Company Spotter Red Dot, which I quite liked, but was second favourite. And for very fine details, I really enjoyed using the Billy Shaw fine liner. The problem with this one was it has a long nib, and therefore for me, who's not used to long nibs, it was quite difficult to use. It also didn't take a great deal of paint at the same time. And what's the point of all of this? Well, we're trying to find an alternative to these, my beloved Winsor & Newton Series 7 Sables, which, although they paint beautifully, do involve the murder of Siberian weasels to make them, and that makes me sad. So let's crack on, shall we? First up, I'm going to be trying the Escoda Prado, and it's a number 1 size. You know, it looks nice. Taking it out, what does that tip look like? That looks quite nice. Let's see if we can zoom in on it. Yeah, rotating the brush, that looks good. I've mixed up 2 colours here. So this is Windsor Blue and Cadmium Yellow Lemon, Cadmium Lemon. And I've been told off so many times by various friends, including Marilena and Sarah, who watched my last but one film, about mixing with my posh brushes, that I am now mixing with a rubbishy brush. I don't even know what this one is. Who knows? It's just kind of in my life. So I've mixed up this green, but because I also have to be honest about what we're doing all the way along, I'm also going to see how it feels mixing with this. So this feels okay. What's happened to the tip? Not a lot. Okay, so I think let's get some of that paint onto the page. And today we're painting the twin flowered sweet pea, which is growing profusely in my garden. It's rather pretty. So hopefully we'll be able to see what each brush can do with it. Okay, well, it looks good. The tip looks so far so good. I've not tried, have I tried an Escoda? I don't even know. I do have a list of what I have and haven't tried. Okay, so far so good. And my problem with a lot of these synthetics is within seconds of me starting to use them, their tips hook and they start to deteriorate. So far so good with this one. Are we zoomed in enough? Can you see? You can kind of see. Let's zoom in a little more on that leaf. Wobble, 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 wobble. Okay, there we go. Okay. So these are the Twin Flower Everlasting Sweet Pea. I think the people who owned the house before us, James and Jules, live in Australia now, I think they must have put them in, but they've absolutely taken over. So we have a beech hedge. Oh, crikey, I got that wrong. We have a beech hedge on one side of the garden, and it is was going to say it's full of sweet pea. It is. It's also full of aphids. It's full of these sweet peas. They're just everywhere. It's like a hedge of sweet peas. So between May and June, it's very, very pretty. And then they all die, the sweet peas do, and then it's not so pretty. It's pretty ugly after that. So we have to pull them all out. Okay, so far so good. This is feeling okay. And on this side. And they're very pretty. And in fact, the flowers are held out at the end of a long flowering stem. So these leaves don't really accompany the flower so much. So I've sort of artificially put them next to each other. I quite like this brush. It's a bit soft, actually. It's not massively problematic, but when I'm trying to do a crisp edge, it sort of yields in a way that I don't really want it to. So now I'm putting on a second layer. I mean, look, the tip is certainly not hooking at all, is it? Not yet. I mean, I know we've only been painting with it for 10 minutes, but... So I'm putting on the second layer. Yeah, again, that softness means that when I go in to do my edge, I'm not quite sure what I'm not sure where my edges are. Okay. I've outlined that like it's in pen and ink or something. That was very stupid. Okay, big line around here. Again, this is this is the same colour mix, but with slightly more cadmium lemon and a whole lot more water. Using water to dilute the paint, rather than adding white, which would make a mucky, filthy mess. So yeah, this is all right. I mean, it's a bit soft. I wanted to kind of step up, be a little bit firmer and a little bit tougher. And it's not going to be. I think it's a soft brush. Maybe it's for somebody with a gentler soul than me, somebody who's calm and kind, generous to a fault. So it won't work for me. Okay, so that's the second wash done, and then I'm going to do a top wash. I've also done a little bit along the stem. Again, I mean, this is pretty small, minute work, and can you see it is holding its point in a way that I'm quite pleased with. So it's just that sort of slight floppiness that's annoying me. It's not even annoying me, it's a background awareness. It's interesting that, so I haven't tried any of the Escodas before, so yeah, all right. I'm going to let that dry and get back to you. I lied to you. I said I hadn't tried any Escodas before. I actually now have to keep a list of which ones I've tried, and I have tried an Escoda. I tried an Escoda Versatile Round, and clearly the fact it's not in amongst my favourites suggests that I didn't like it very much. So this one is obviously doing better than that. But yeah, there's that softness that I don't particularly like. But yeah, it's certainly doing, I mean, it's doing well, right? It's, you know, and there's no, there's the merest suggestion of a hook. So second part of putting these brushes through their paces, the ones I like, the two Escodas and the Princeton, I'm going to do some more with. So this is the Escoda Prado, and I'm putting shadow onto the leaves. So the colour I've mixed up is Windsor Violet and Windsor Blue and Windsor Green, all the Windsors. And all I'm going to be doing here is picking out the darks and seeing how this brush handles that kind of level of accuracy, which is really when a sharp tip is absolutely required. Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I'm impressed by these Escodas. So I'm expecting that they'll manage this quite easily. I'm going to do all the shadows on the leaves. Excuse me for rotating the subject. I know it's tiresome, but needs must. So you can see I can get a tiny line on the outside, which is really encouraging. Again, there's that slight softness, which means I can't quite be as crisp as I want to be, but that really, I mean, compared to some of the dross that we've been testing since I began this wild goose chase, yeah, that's fine. And the other leaf. I mean, me doing this, what is bad is it means that you can't tell which leaf produced, which brush produced which leaf, but seeing as what, they're all much of a muchness, except the Raphael, which has been sent back to its packet to sit and think about what it's done or what it's failed to do. Doesn't really make too much difference. So what I'm looking for as I work with these brushes now is whether or not they're going to develop hooks, whether or not they continue to give me the accuracy that I require. And so far, this one's all right. I know that the main question is it as good as my Winsor & Newton? But the thing is, it's a synthetic, it's not a sable, and I'm so used to sables that no matter how amazing a synthetic is, I think I need to accept that it will never be, for me, as comfortable as using a sable, which I've used all my life. Okay, picking up the darks here as well. It's holding up. I mean, again, we're still early days. I mean, I suppose in total I've only been using this brush for probably less than 20 minutes. So, you know, yes, it's all very well to sing its praises and make it, you know, glorify it to the heavens. But how would it be doing after I'd been painting with it non-stop for 6 hours, you know, or the 7th plant in a species list that I'm working on? And that only time will tell. A video like this, a video test like this won't tell. Back to the Prado. So now I'm going to be doing the buds of the flower with the Prado. Shouldn't take very long. It's quite a lot darker. So the mix for these buds is a little different. It's permanent carmine. I would have used alizarin crimson, but I've recently learnt that it's very fugitive, which means it fades super quickly. Alizarin crimson, opera rose, which also fades, and Windsor violet, which is a nice strong colour. So just following the lines of growth. So these are all curled up over themselves, and they hide all the reproductive structures which are in the heart of this. I tell you what, the flies and the bees, they've got it in for me today. It's a beautiful day. They should be out with the flowers, not spending their time hitting their heads on windows in my studio. Again, I'm meant to be telling you bad things about these brushes, aren't I? Can't really. This is fine. It's doing fine. It is a little bit soft, tiny bit soft. So when it gets to the really accurate bits, it can be a bit tiresome. But really nothing to complain about at all, especially for a quick sketch like this. And the tip doesn't seem to have degraded, and the wider, oh yeah, didn't mean to do that, that was stupid. The wider strokes are nice too. Yep, I'm gonna stop filming this because there's not really a lot to say except for this brush is working beautifully. Okay, Escoda Perla up next. Looks pretty good, although when I rotate it, it's got a bit of a wobble, which is weird. You see? It's really hard to see because the tip is entirely white. So showing it to you against the paper is no use at all. Right, again, I've mixed up some of my colour using another brush, but here we go. We're going to take this off, see what that nib looks like, and rinsing out whatever it's been sized with. Let's see how it does. If I were mixing with this one, I'm now just lathening the brush. I'm not actually doing the mixing. My friend Marilena was pointing out that when you do mixing, even if you're using, say, whatever, your brush tips hit the edge of the plastic pans if you're using pans, and that can compromise them. Anyway, so this seems to mix pretty well. What does that tip look like to me, to you? To me, to you, to me, to you. Looks right. Okay, let's have a little look and see what we're going to do. So we're going to do the next leaf now. Zooming in. So Escoda Perla. Like the other Escoda, this is a number 1. Okay, I'm going to have to rotate this. And now I'm going to have to do the Sin Against the Holy Ghost and lean on what I've already painted. Don't do that, it's foolish. Actually, I'm going to have to do that as well. Okay. Oh, nice fine line there. Look at that. I'll zoom in even further so you can see what I'm up to. Those are tiny little lines. Again, it feels soft. I mean, in the same way as the other Escoda, as the Prado. There's a softness to it that I don't particularly love. I'm going to have to remember which is which. Choosing to do Escoda Prado and Escoda Perla in the same video is a hiding to nothing. I'm not going to be able to remember who's who. Okay. So far so good with this. Again, it's got that softness that I didn't have with the Princeton Neptune. So far, as I say, my favourite out of all those I've tested is the Princeton Neptune. There's another Princeton we're testing today, so I'm going to be interested to see how that one shapes up. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's all right. Not got a problem with that. I mean, any mistakes with this leaf that I'm doing now is not the fault of the brush, but the fault of the artist. Okay, and this side of the leaf. Again, a bit more rotation. Sorry. Oh, there's a little hook. Oh, little hook. Meow, meow. Hook alert, hook alert. Boop, boop, boop. Hook alert. Didn't take long, did it? Doesn't seem to make much difference. I think this hook thing is inevitable. I think there is no way, no matter how careful you are with these brushes, I don't think you can avoid it. I think it just kind of goes with the territory, because I think almost all of them that I've tried have hooked eventually, haven't they? And some more than others, and some faster than others. But then I also wonder how much is down to individual brushes. So somebody else was saying, you know, go into the shop and make sure that the ones you're buying don't have hooked tips. And if I lived like near an art shop, that would be great, but I don't. I live in the middle of nowhere. Well, I don't. That's bad. I live in a bustling market town of Hay-on-Wye, but it does not have an art supply store on its doorstep anymore. So I can't go and check out which ones I'm using and the tips of them all. So this is Escoda Perla. Yeah, so far so good. Not disappointed. Not bad. It's not, with some of them, they're so soft that they swallow up all the whites, which is not the desired effect. But this one doesn't seem to. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of control that I can get from this brush, which I haven't been able to do with all the others. This is really annoying, right? So this is my last test, and it's going to end up with everything I test being amazing, which I guess is good, but it's also annoying because it means I can't make any like really sharp and crisp conclusions. But there's not, I mean, to be honest with you, between the Escoda Perla and the Escoda Prado, first one I did, there's not much in it. They're very, very similar and both really quite good. So let's try the Escoda Perla again. And I'm going to paint the buds with the Escoda Perla. So they're quite a light, bright green. It's interesting, actually. They're not tinged with pink at all. I'm not sure about the botany of that, whether the colours of the petals develop closer to the maturity of the bud right before it comes into bloom, or whether the bud shields the pink. But you'd have thought if the bud shielded the pink that you could still see a suggestion of pink through it, and you can't. So maybe the pink just hasn't developed yet. It's quite a bright pink, as you'll see when you get on to doing the flower. Okay, again, this is nice. It's just, I'm not even really considering it. I'm just painting with it, feeling comfortable. Not a problem at all. And I'm gonna plot in these two leaves with the same brush. They're very little leaves. They're very young. Only just unfurled. Can you see? Yeah, you can see stuff. Yeah, I'm not anxious about any of this. This is all going really well. In fact, I feel almost like a fraud putting it through its paces for the second time. I'm just interested to know with time whether it degrades. That's really what I'm doing here. Whether or not with use and with time the point wears down. More work for the perla. I'm going to try and glue all these bits together so they make sense. So this bit, this time the perla is going to do this side, the veins on this side of the sweet pea flower, if it can. Okay. So again, I'm probably not going to make you sit through all of this, but let's see just more or less how it holds up. That's a nice point, isn't it? Yeah, not much in it. They look the same to me. So the perla's doing well. I'm now going to put a top wash on using the perla and see how it manages that. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. I can't see there'd be a problem. So bringing the colour, being brave but not foolish. Bringing the water into the mix, following the lines of growth, following those veins. We want the veins to show through. We don't want them to be too prominent. We also don't want this tide line from where I've added the top wash to be left. And actually it really is quite a lot darker here. So I'm adding little spots of colour. So being entirely honest with you, at this point in time, I'm not even thinking about what brush I'm doing. I'm just trying to work fast before the paint dries on me, in the same way as I would be doing with any brush, just pulling those washes into the mix without leaving tide lines where the colour has been added, following those directions of growth. And yeah, it has to be said, I'm not cursing this paintbrush. It seems to be doing me proud. It's doing exactly what I'm asking it to do, so well done, perla. Okay, that's not great. I think I've left that. That's going to have stained the paper. Okay, that's all right though. Again, that's a user error. If I do that, if I come and work in a bit, that's better. Okay, so that side is fine with the perla. Third brush up is the Princeton round. It's a number 2 because I couldn't get a number 1 again, and this one's Velvet Touch, whatever that may mean. I'm excited about this one because, as I say, my favourite thus far has been the Neptune, Princeton Neptune. So this one I hold out great things for. So there we go. The paint's ready to go. See what it looks like. You can always tell quite a lot by a brush after that first intrepid dive into the paint. It's still holding its tip. That looks all right. I'm pleased. Does it feel any tougher than the Escoda's? Not sure. Okay, let's zoom in and work on a leaf, shall we? Let's work on one of these too. Maybe this one. Okay, so same approach as before, lots of tiny little lines. Okay, a bit thicker. Is that because the paint is wetter? Or is it because the brush is softer? It's got a nice tip to it though. Oh, the paper, whoops. The paper I'm working on today is Fluid 100. So I had a crisis quite recently with my Fluid 100. It had all stopped working and I had a little hissy fit, I'm afraid. And I went to the suppliers and I said, oh, my paper, I've been questing for a decent paper for so long and it doesn't work and I hate everybody and life's rubbish and I can't bear to go questing for a decent watercolour hot press again. You know, throwing my art equipment out of the pram kind of thing. And they got back in touch with the manufacturers, who are, I think they're global, is that right? And they got back to Jackson's and said, oh, yeah, there is a problem with some of the Fluid 100 in that we glued it the wrong way up in the glued pads. Tell her to use the other side, the upside down side, which I did. And funnily enough, we're fine again. So that's clearly what happened there. But I guess the moral of that tale is it's always worth asking your suppliers or the stockists or whatever, because they might be able to point out something to you that you were too stupid to consider, as in this case for me. So yeah, Fluid 100 by Global Arts. Okay, so this Princeton Round Velvet Touch is going well. Is that the midday bell already? Crikey. I thought it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. No. Okay, so again, following the lines of the veins, following the lines of growth. You've all seen me do this a million times. This is not in any way novel. In fact, some of you will have seen me paint this plant before, because as it comes out conveniently every year in the garden and is quite pretty, it makes for a good and useful subject. Also doesn't seem to suffer from the aphid. So our garden, you won't be surprised to hear, I'm not a great gardener, but I do garden very kind of wildlife friendly, so I don't use pesticides or anything like that. I encourage weeds, especially if they're pretty. But I have got a massive problem this year with aphids, because I don't think it was cold enough for them to die off last winter. So I have just indulged myself and ordered in a batch of adult ladybirds, a batch of ladybird larvae, and a batch of lacewing larvae, all of whom are voracious aphid eaters. So hopefully they won't just go next door and eat everybody else's aphids. That'll just be, that'd be difficult. Hopefully they will make the most of our aphids. Although, you know what, you shouldn't really knock aphids, because they're amazing. They you know that when an aphid is born, not only does it have its daughters ready to go within it, but it has its granddaughters. It's like telescopic pregnancy. Parthenogenesis. They don't need men. They don't need men to reproduce male aphids. They do every now and then. They produce a male generation once a year in order to mix up the genetic variety of the population. But it's mostly a fantastic female-led family. And they're very, I mean, they are cool, but they do terrible things to my plants. I find it hard to forgive them. Okay, so I'm rambling, but I'm also liking my Princeton Velvet Touch. Do you think I could say Velvet Touch without making it silly? I don't think I could. It's their fault for using such a foolish name. You know what? I really like this. It is soft, but somehow there was a softness to the Escodas, which felt slightly problematic. But here with this one, it doesn't feel problematic. It feels great, actually. Do you remember with some of the brushes that I've tested, they actually have made scratching noises on the page? I mean, we're a million miles away from that kind of product. So yeah, I mean, this is the third brush I've tested today, and yeah, it's a real contender. I really like it. Right, this is the real test, and I've chosen the Velvet Touch to do the test. I've mixed up a colour. That is Opera Rose plus some Windsor Violet. And with anything involving Opera Rose, which is that bright pink, it is fugitive, which means it will fade, or at least it might fade. There's some debate over this. So yeah, so if you're going to put it somewhere in the sun, or even supposedly the oxygen in the air might cause it to fade over time. However, that's not going to be a problem for me, because I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm certainly not going to be keeping this sketch. Maybe I'll give it to my mother-in-law for her birthday, bless her. Right, okay, so now I'm going to plot in these veins. And you can see this is a real test of the accuracy of that point, right? Can it plot in these veins successfully? Can I plot in the veins successfully? How much is the brush and how much is me, hey? So, I love these flowers. They don't smell. So I know that one of the most wonderful things about sweet peas is their smell. And these wild ones, they really don't smell at all, which is weird. And I also, actually, I've never really seen the insects being particularly interested in them, which suggests that maybe they're only wild because they're garden escapes. Maybe they're not originally native species, because normally you'll see a relationship going on there with most plants. What's happening here? So yeah, you know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to go and do this by myself without filming. I think you can see how it's working. But I'm going to use this side. I'm going to do the Velvet Touch. And the other side, I'm going to use one of the Escodas. I don't even know which one to use, actually. But yeah, let me do a few more lines here, and then I'll get back. And then I'll go and head off and do that, rather than wasting all your time. Yep, so the Velvet Touch is doing really well. You know, I can't really see a hook, and it's doing all the crisp lines that I'm asking it to do. Yeah, really happy with that. And now the Princeton Velvet Touch. Same thing, that top wash. Let's see how it manages it. Going heavy with that top wash. Quickly get the water on it. Pull it down, following the directions of growth. Moving it out, out, out. Okay. And along the outermost edges. I've realised I haven't zoomed in, but now I have a wet wash on, so I can't do anything. I can't zoom in or anything. My family hate it when I have a wet wash. They'll be like, Mum, can you? It's like, I can't do anything. I got wet wash. Got to keep the paint moving. Dad, she's got a wet wash going. Yeah. Don't answer the phone. Don't do anything when that paint is wet and when you need to move it about before it stains the page in a way that you don't want it to. You don't want any unnecessary tide lines. Okay, and again, they're really, again, I would say, not much in it. What do you think? What do you think? They're all good. I'm trying to tell the difference between them at this point in time. So this just goes over everything to try and make it sing. Again, it's just Opera Rose. Including this bit of green up there. Now what's nice when you put these top washes on is you can still see the veins, the network of veins, but they're not nearly as in your face, which echoes what the flower is like in nature. You can see the veins, but they're not the first thing that you notice. It's not like a pansy or something. Again, following the lines of growth. And I'm going to add, once this is down, I'm going to add some extra water, because I would quite like the effect. Can you see I'm just putting drops of water on? So when it dries, hopefully, there'll be an extra sharp line towards the outside edge, which is an effect I really like. And again, I mean, to be honest with you, it wouldn't make, as long as I didn't use the Raphael for this, it wouldn't make the damnedest bit of difference which of these three brushes I use for this. Fourth brush of the day. This is a Raphael Precision 85046, and it's a, look, that's weird, they've cut the end of the brush off, and it's a number, it's a size 0. I wanted a size 1, but I couldn't get a size 1. The only way I could source these particular brushes was by getting them in travel sets. So this one's come with this large one, which I'll never use, and with that square-ended one, which I'll never use. But yeah, so this is the set that I got. And oh, it's very short. Oh, it's a little stumpy. Hello, little stumpy. Oh, it feels weird. Oh dear. Right, okay, so that paint's all ready to go. What do we look like? Oh, you see, we're back in the darkness. Look at that tip. We're back in the Valley of Doom, I think, ladies and gentlemen. Right, let's give it a go. Be kind, be generous, give everybody one go. This is going to be another painful moment. I was saying I didn't want them all to be nice, but actually, do you know what? It was quite nice, them all being nice, because I didn't have to work really hard at concentrating and being cheerful and not swearing on camera. This is thick. This is horrible. I'm not happy. I want to do a little bit of crying. Same old, same old. Yeah, it's just not, it's not crisp, is it? It's not soft. Some of the other ones I've tried today have been a bit soft, but it makes no difference. It may not be soft. I mean, it can be whatever it wants if it doesn't hold its tip. It's no use to me. And this one, it's got a slightly, it's the well is too fat. That's what it is. So the tip isn't actually that bad, but if you get the angle even slightly wrong, then the well just splurges onto the page and it's all game over time. Oh, crikey, come on. This is just not, this is not fun. It's just not fun. Yuck. Achavi, as we'd say in Wales. Okay. So, and also because it's, because the brush is that much blunter, it's not, yeah, it's not drying as fast because there's more paint on the page, which isn't necessarily something I want. Oh no, there's a bumblebee in the spider's web who's going to need rescuing. Simmer down, little bumblebee. I'll rescue you in a minute. Simmer, who's got the keys to my bim bimmer? Right. Okay, and then I'm going to let that dry. And I'm also going to pause right now and rescue the bumblebee. Oh, hopefully you can see that the quality of this leaf is noticeably worse than the one next to it. So that one was done with the Velvet Touch. That one was done with the Prada. That one was done with the Perla. And this piece of rubbish was done with the Raphael Precision. So the blob test. First up, we're doing Escoda Prado. The paint goes on very nicely, no surprise. Add a bit of water and that should dilute out lovely. A bit more water maybe. And can we do a nice thin line with this one? I think we all know the answer to that. Yes, we absolutely can. Lovely. So I'm going to write its name next to it. Escoda Prado, a contender. Definitely a contender. Put that one down, and then the next Escoda is the Perla. So here's the Perla coming down. Bit more water. I quite like this one. What's nice about this one is that the nib, the white tip, takes on whatever paint colour you're working with. Can this one do a nice straight line? Well, it depends whether or not I can do a nice straight line. There we go. Yes, it can. Okay, it's another contender. Escoda Perla. And again, I'm going to say it again. I can't tell the two of them apart except by the way they look. Okay. And then we're on to our third good brush of the day, which is our Velvet Touch. Yep. It's a bit bigger actually. Well, I suppose it's number 2, not number 1, isn't it? Okay, so there we go. Applying the colour, not a problem. Watering it down a bit, again, not a problem. Can we get a nice straight line with this one? Well, we would have been able to if I hadn't jogged the paper, wouldn't we? Yes, of course we can. Okay, so that's... It's not that. I was going to try Neptune. It's not. It's Princeton Velvet Touch. Okay, and finally, I feel really mean about this one, but it just didn't perform. This little stumpy number. So this one is the Raphael. Bit more water. Oh, bless it. Can this one do a nice little precise thin line? No, it can't. Not even when I'm trying really hard. It can't do it. It can't do it. Poor little thing. So that one was the Raphael Precision. There we go. Oh, I can't spell. Shh, don't tell anyone. Blob test done. So in conclusion, we've now finished the illustration and we have 3 brushes which were very good. So we have the Escoda Prado and the Escoda Perla and the Neptune Velvet Touch, and then we had the Raphael. Yeah, really good brushes, all 3 of them, and I may be using all of them. My favourite out of all of them was definitely the Princeton Velvet Touch, which along with the Princeton Neptune are going to be my synthetic alternatives to my Winsor & Newton Series 7. So in conclusion, of the 20 plus brushes that I've tried, my favourites, it's a very personal thing, don't forget this, my favourites coming in first, joint first, are the 2 Princeton brushes, the Princeton Velvet Touch and the Princeton Neptune. Both of them are size 2. I'll be interested to try size 1s. First prize to Princeton. Second prize goes jointly to the Escodas that I tried today. Escoda Prado and Escoda Perla. They brilliant. They kept their tips and they were very convincingly good. Third prize goes to Rosemary Company Spotter Red Dot. Just some of the rosemaries I tried hooked really quickly, so it's made me a little anxious about that. Honourable mention, and this is mostly because I'm rubbish at working with long brushes like riggers, goes to Billy Showell's fine liner, which was excellent for details. So there you are. There you have it. My final results. And please don't suggest any more brushes to me because I shall go mad. But can I just thank you very much for sticking with me through this entire test. So it only remains for me to thank everybody for being so patient with me as I went through these 5 videos testing synthetic alternatives to my trusty Winsor & Newton Sable. The take-home message is there really are options out there. If you'd like to see more of my work, mostly done with Winsor & Newton brushes, but maybe increasingly with these ones, do check out my website, lizzieharper.co.uk. There's a blog that will go with this, the final film. As I say, I'm not going to be testing any more brushes. I'm done on that now because I've found some decent alternatives. But thank you so much for your time and good luck. Yeah, hopefully, even though it's a very personal thing, hopefully my tests might have given some guidance towards those of you who are also looking for an alternative to Sable brushes. And happy painting, everybody. Oh, like and subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you next time.